21 things remembered in Britain, but nowhere else might sound like exaggeration. But if you grew up in the UK during the 70s, 80s or 90s, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. These cultural touchstones united the nation, from Saturday morning telly to peculiar snacks Americans would never understand. These weren't just products or programs, they were shared experiences defining British life in ways feeling almost sacred. However, here's the twist. Most of these beloved institutions have been completely forgotten by the rest of the world, or never registered on their radar at all. So what makes something so universally British that it becomes invisible elsewhere? Bunty magazine ran from 1958 to 2001, featuring the four Marys, the longest-running story in British girls' comics. Mary Field, Mary Radley, Mary Cotter and Mary Simpson attended St Elmo's School for Girls, navigating mysteries, sports, bullies and friendships through beautifully detailed artwork. The strip evolved over decades whilst maintaining its boarding school fantasy appeal. For generations of British women, these characters represented an aspirational yet comfortingly familiar world. Mention the four Marys to a woman of a certain age and watch recognition flood her face. Outside Britain, this cultural phenomenon barely registers, perfectly exemplifying something quintessentially British. Stick around because entry number 17 will transport you back to one of the most daring advertising campaigns British television has ever seen. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. In October 1999, Heinz sparked genuine panic when announcing they might discontinue salad cream, the tangy yellow condiment gracing British tables since 1914. Panic buying erupted nationwide. This wasn't quite mayonnaise, not quite salad dressing, but something uniquely British. People who hadn't purchased it in years suddenly stockpiled bottles, driven by that peculiarly British fear of losing familiar things. The uproar proved so intense that Heinz quickly backtracked, reassuring the nation. The incident revealed something profound. British attachment to familiar foods runs incredibly deep. We don't accept having choices removed, even ones barely used. Principle matters more than practice, and salad cream had earned its sacred status. Walk into any British newsagent during the 70s through 90s, and Sherbet Fountains occupied prime sweet selection territory. This yellow licorice tube filled with fizzy sherbet powder, topped with a distinctive plastic cap, created uniquely tactile eating experiences. You'd bite off the top, creating a straw for sucking sherbet, or tip it directly into your mouth. Either method delivered sugar rushes and sherbet-dusted faces. The chewy, slightly bitter licorice counterpointed intensely sweet, tangy sherbet. Children strategically managed consumption, avoiding soggy licorice tubes from excessive moisture. Though still available today, their cultural significance has diminished. For those who remember, Sherbet Fountains represent specific British childhood moments untranslatable elsewhere. Launched by Cadbury in 1970, Curly Wurly became legendary playground currency. This braided caramel covered in milk chocolate, stretched into a distinctive ladder shape, looked far more substantial than it actually was. That was its genius. For relatively small money, you got something feeling like excellent value through length and eating time. Children would stretch it, twist it, experiment with how far it extended before breaking. Trading value equaled perhaps 2 gobstoppers or 3 chews in British playground barter economies. Unlike many retro sweets that disappeared or changed drastically, Curly Wurly remains largely unchanged since introduction. For middle-aged Britons, biting one triggers instant nostalgia, transporting them to school break times. November 1983 brought shocking news to British children's television. The Blue Peter garden, lovingly cultivated since 1974, was completely destroyed by vandals over the weekend of 19th to 20th November. Blue Peter was more than programming, it was an institution uniting British children across all classes. The garden symbolised growth, care and community participation. Viewers had suggested plantings, watched presenters nurture seedlings and felt genuine ownership. When Janet Ellis reported the destruction on the 21st of November, her distress resonated, with millions feeling personally violated. The BBC covered it as major news, police investigated, and the nation rallied around this vandalised patch. Blue Peter's unique cultural position was revealed through this violation. Saturday nights in early 90s Britain meant Noel's house party, regularly pulling over 15 million viewers. The show's most controversial legacy was Mr. Blobby, that pink and yellow spotted character who could only say his own name. Originally designed for pranking celebrities in gotcha segments, something extraordinary happened. Blobby transcended his purpose, becoming a phenomenon. He released a single reaching Christmas #1 in 1993, had theme park attractions, and became instantly recognisable nationwide. Yet he was deeply divisive. Many found him genuinely irritating, representing entertainment's lowest denominator. Others embraced him with ironic affection. For British people of certain generations, Mr. Blobby represents when Saturday night television dominated cultural conversation. Launched in 1977, No Frills revolutionised budget shopping with Britain's most basic packaging imaginable. White labels with simple black text stating exactly what was inside. No branding, no images, no promises beyond product descriptions, baked beans, cornflakes, washing powder. The minimalism was revolutionary and somewhat intimidating. Shopping with No Frills made statements about economic situations, but also represented savvy budgeting and rejecting fancy packaging costs. Quality was often surprisingly decent, sometimes sourced from identical factories as branded goods. For working-class communities, quick survey meant weekly shopping, and No Frills meant stretching budgets to feed families. When Quick Survey disappeared in 2007, an era ended. Few things sparked more playground speculation than mysterious TV detector vans. These vehicles, allegedly equipped with sophisticated technology detecting whether you watch television without a license, became British folklore from the 1950s onwards. TV licensing ensured everyone knew these vans existed through intimidating letters and news reports showing vans with impressive-looking roof equipment. Here's the twist. The actual technology was always shrouded in secrecy. And decades later, Freedom of Information requests cast serious doubt on whether they ever worked as advertised. Evidence suggests the vans were largely psychological deterrents, playing on people's fear of prosecution. Yet the threat proved incredibly effective across multiple generations of Britons. Before regional news became formulaic, there was Nationwide, the BBC's early evening magazine show running from 1969 to 1983. Broadcast at 6 p.m. after main news, Nationwide brought together stories across the UK with investigative journalism, human interest pieces, and lighter features feeling refreshingly unpredictable. Presenters like Michael Barrett, Sue Lawley, Frank Bow, and Bob Wellings became household names. What made Nationwide special was commitment to regional stories and making everyday life feel significant. Local library campaigns could sit alongside corporate investigations, followed by quirky hobby pieces. The show had warmth and accessibility that later programmes struggled to replicate, representing communal television before fragmentation. Saturday mornings in late 70s and early 80s, Britain meant multicoloured swap shop. Running from 1976 to 1982, this live programme hosted by Noel Edmonds transformed Saturday mornings and created genuinely interactive television years before the internet. The premise was brilliant. Children could phone or write in to swap unwanted toys, books or games with other children nationwide. Noel and co-hosts Keith Chegwin and Maggie Philbin facilitated swaps live, creating exciting possibility and participation. But Swap Shop included live music, celebrity interviews, cartoons, and organised chaos perfectly capturing children's Saturday morning energy. Phone lines jammed with children desperate to swap unwanted action men for board games. Few drinks capture a specific era of British social aspiration quite like Babycham. Launched in 1953, this sparkling perry was marketed specifically at women as an alternative to beer, which was considered masculine. The advertising was genius, sophisticated, glamorous, featuring a distinctive fawn logo that became instantly recognisable. The slogan, "I'd love a Babycham," became part of British cultural vocabulary. For working class and middle class women in the 50s through 70s, ordering Babycham was a statement of femininity and sophistication. The drink came in distinctive small bottles, served in special Babycham glasses that pubs stocked specifically. Babycham represented a particular moment when women's roles were changing within carefully defined parameters. We're halfway through our journey into British cultural memory, and if you're enjoying these forgotten treasures, you're going to love what's coming next. But first, let's continue with something that defined working class shopping in the 80s and 90s. Television comedy in the 70s produced nothing quite like the goodies. Tim Brooke-Taylor, Graham Garden, and Bill Oddie created surreal, anarchic comedy mixing live action, animation, and sped-up film sequences into something simultaneously childish and sophisticated. Running from 1970 to 1982, the show featured the trio as an anything-goes agency, taking bizarre jobs descending into chaos, often involving their iconic trandom, a three-seater bicycle. Episodes tackled political satire, environmental issues, and social commentary, whilst featuring absurdist plots involving giant kittens and Rolf Harris werewolves. The goodies never achieved Monty Python's international recognition, partly because their humour referenced contemporary British culture specifically. Yet, in Britain, they were massive. If there's one dessert defining British childhoods in the 70s and 80s, it's Angel Delight. This instant dessert mix, launched by Birds in 1967, promised to transform boring milk into magical, fluffy, flavoured mousse within minutes. The process was simple. Pour powder into cold milk, whisk vigorously for 30 seconds, and watch it transform into airy dessert served almost immediately. Original flavours were strawberry, chocolate, butterscotch, and raspberry. The texture was unique, simultaneously light and creamy, with tiny air bubbles throughout, giving it almost ethereal quality. The taste was intensely artificial, unashamedly sweet, and utterly delicious to children who had no sophisticated palate judging it. Dragon children's television in Britain produced many strange creatures, but few are as memorable as the soup dragon from the Clangers. The Clangers themselves, small pink knitted creatures living on a small moon-like planet, were created by Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin, and first broadcast in 1969. They communicated in whistles and lived harmoniously with various creatures, including the soup dragon. This green dragon-like creature lived in caves and provided the Clangers with green soup whenever they visited, ladling it from a large pot that never seemed empty. The brilliance of the Clangers was its gentle, thoughtful storytelling approach. Episodes moved slowly, with minimal action but maximum charm. No discussion of British cultural memory is complete without mentioning Morecambe and Wise, specifically their Christmas specials, which became as essential to British Christmas as turkey and crackers. Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise were a comedy double act whose partnership lasted over 40 years, but their BBC Christmas specials from 1968 to 1971, 1977 represent British light entertainment at its absolute peak. The 1977 Christmas special attracted over 28 million viewers, making it one of the most watched television programmes in British history. What made these specials beloved was Eric and Ernie's genuine chemistry, excellent writing, and major stars' willingness to appear and be gently mocked. Everyone from Shirley Bassey to Andre Previn participated. Opening a Fray Bentos pie was a rite of passage for British cooks from the 1960s onwards. These tinned pies, particularly the steak and kidney variety, came in distinctive shallow tins requiring specific techniques and often significant force to open properly. The tin opener had to puncture the lid all around the edge, a process frequently resulting in jagged metal, spilled gravy, and occasional minor injuries. But the struggle proved worthwhile for the contents. A proper pie with pastry top and meat filling that could be heated and served as substantial meals. Fray Bentos pies represented convenience food at its most British. They could sit in cupboards for months, ready for emergencies. few advertising campaigns achieved the cultural penetration of the milk tray man. From 1968 onwards, Cadbury's advertisements for milk tray chocolates featured a mysterious, James Bond-style figure dressed in black who would infiltrate secure locations through death-defying stunts, leave a box of chocolates for a beautiful woman, and disappear into the night. The tagline, "And all because the lady loves milk tray," became embedded in British consciousness. The character became a cultural reference point for romantic gestures and daring behaviour. The advertisements were mini-action films featuring the milk tray man skiing down mountains, parachuting onto yachts and scaling buildings, all to deliver his chocolates. The character perfectly captured masculine romantic fantasy. Walk into any British supermarket and you'll still find Tunnock's tea cakes, those distinctive red and silver foil-wrapped treats that have been a Scottish and British institution since 1956. Each tea cake consists of a biscuit base topped with a dome of soft marshmallow covered in chocolate. The foil wrapper, featuring the iconic red and gold design, became instantly recognisable to generations of Britons. The eating experience is quite specific. Unwrap the foil, then decide whether to bite it whole or nibble the chocolate coating off first before eating the marshmallow and biscuit separately. The marshmallow inside has peculiar texture, denser and more stable than typical marshmallow, allowing it to maintain shape without becoming too chewy. Children's television in Britain always had a surreal edge, but the Magic Roundabout took this to new levels. Originally a French programme called Le Manège Enchanté, the British version was completely reimagined by Eric Thompson, who ignored the original French scripts and created entirely new dialogue for characters. The result was extraordinary, a children's show working on two levels simultaneously. Main characters included Dougal, a scruffy dog with cynical outlook, Zebedee, a mustachioed jack-in-the-box bouncing on a spring who controlled time, Florence, the kind human girl, and various other creatures including a cow, snail, and rabbit. The show ran from 1965 to 1977, with each episode lasting just 5 minutes. Before mobile phones and contactless payment, British public telephone boxes operated on a system seeming incomprehensibly complex today: button A and button B. This system existed primarily in the pre-decimal era and into early 1970s. When making a call, you'd insert coins, dial the number, and wait. If the call connected, you'd press button A, sending coins into the collection box and allowing conversation. If the call didn't connect or was busy, you'd press button B, returning your money. This system, whilst logical, created opportunities for confusion, frustration, and occasional fraud. People would sometimes find coins already in the mechanism if someone forgot pressing button B, leading to always trying button B before inserting your own coins. Long before loyalty cards and apps tracking every purchase, there were Green Shield stamps, a trading stamp scheme dominating British shopping from the 1950s through 1970s. The concept was straightforward. You'd receive stamps based on spending at participating shops, typically petrol stations and supermarkets. You'd stick these stamps into books, and once you'd collected enough, you could exchange them for gifts from catalogues or at redemption centres. The stamps themselves were green and came in various denominations. The act of collecting, sticking and counting stamps became a domestic ritual, with families gathering around kitchen tables to fill stamp books whilst watching television. The Green Shield stamp catalogue was aspirational, featuring everything from kitchen appliances to toys to furniture. 21 things that united Britain across generations, yet remained invisible to much of the rest of the world. These weren't just products, programmes or systems. They were shared experiences that created a common language among Britons, from the disappointment of a soggy Sherbet Fountain to the collective outrage over a vandalised Blue Peter garden, from the mystique of TV detector vans to the satisfaction of filling a Green Shield stamp book. These memories bind us together in ways that transcend age and background. What makes these things so distinctly British? Perhaps it's our relationship with nostalgia, our tendency to elevate the ordinary into the beloved, or our collective experience of making do and finding joy in small pleasures. These memories remind us that culture isn't just about the big, obvious things. It's found in the everyday, the quirky, and the things we thought everyone knew about but discover are uniquely ours. If you've enjoyed this journey through British cultural memory, hit that subscribe button so you never miss our deep dives into the things that shaped Britain. Drop a comment below telling us which of these 21 things resonated most with you, or if we missed something that deserves to be on this list. Let's keep these memories alive together, because once they're gone forever. Until next time, keep remembering, keep sharing, and keep celebrating what makes British culture so wonderfully distinctive.